Jubilee Mission Hospital has been tremendously fortunate to have as its pioneer and one of its founding fathers, Dr. Hirji Saurabh Erenwala, an outstandingly talented surgeon who walked a little more than an extra mile to bringing smile in the faces of children who couldn't have had it without him. He wasn't just a surgeon, but a visionary and a passionate teacher. I invite Reverend Father Francis Pallikunath and Dr. P.V. Narayanan to please come on to the dais. We invite Dr. Ashok Narayan Umman, Professor and HOD of the Department of General Surgery, Jubilee Mission Medical College, to address the gathering. We welcome you, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Respected Reverend Father Francis Pallikunath, our Director, Dr. P.V. Narayanan, the orator for today, dignitaries on and off the dais, the well-wishers, family members of Dr. H.S. Erenwala, ladies and gentlemen. We now move on to an important event of the day, today's program, the Dr. H.S. Erenwala Memorial Oration. It is not possible to summarize the life of Dr. HSA in a few words. Dr. HSA was a legend of our times who established, built, and nurtured the surgery department for the past 43 years. He played a major part in the growth of this institution and of the department from a small dispensary to a 1,600-bed medical college hospital. I was extremely fortunate to have been associated with him from 1985 and been his trainee and pupil from 1988. He led and he steered the department to be the oldest department and an extremely robust department, having a bed strength of about 155 beds, and in addition, a fully functioning 18-bedded burns unit dedicated to the care of burns. He also later founded and established the Charlie Pinto Center for Cleft Surgery, which he led until his demise on 27th of May 2020, serving this prestigious institution for a full 60 years. This itself is a feat in longevity. Dr. HSA, or Sir as we affectionately called him, was a much loved and highly respected doctor and fondly remembered by his former colleagues and patients whom he treated with such care, consideration throughout his 60 years of service. He was an academician and a master craftsman, a leader who led this department to great heights. He was an outstanding family doctor and above all, a man who touched the lives of his patients in a meaningful way. He was loving, humble, and a selfless family man. He was soft-spoken and gentle, yet unmovable in his determination to honor God's commandments to love his people. He set the standard, he set the bar, and a challenge that will continue to motivate every one of us. He leaves behind a great legacy of caring and will be sorely missed by all of us. I now request Dr. Sharma to read his life story.
Dr. Hirji Sorab Adenwala, popularly known as Dr. HSA, was a legendary plastic surgeon of the 20th century. Dr. H.S. Adenwala was born on 5th June 1930 in Ahmednagar, Maharashtra. His father was a general practitioner and a caring doctor. Dr. H.S. Adenwala obtained his MBBS and later MS degree in general surgery from Seth Khorandas Sundardas Medical College and KEIM Hospital, Bombay in 1959. He started his professional and teaching career as he trained in plastic surgery with Professor Charles Pinto and in pediatric surgery with Professors Arthur D. Sa, R.J. Kathrak, and Rustam Irani. While working as a senior registrar at the Bhai Jarbhai Wadia Hospital for Children, Bombay, he gained his experience in pediatric and plastic surgery and became interested in the children born with cleft lip and palate deformities. Later, he joined Jubilee Mission Hospital, Thrissur, as a young surgeon in 1959. In 1960, Dr. H.S. Adenwala married Gulnar Irani and is blessed with two daughters, Dr. Homai and Meher, and one son, Dr. Firdos. He worked for 6 decades at the Jubilee Mission Hospital, first as a general and plastic surgeon, and then the founder HOD of the Department of General Surgery. As a versatile surgeon, he made a mark in the profession. Calm and collected, meticulous in his technique, it was a true delight to watch him in his earlier days performing the general surgical operations. The reputation that this hospital earned as one of the largest centers for general surgery was largely due to his skill and the technique that he adopted and the training that he gave to the many others. For the last 30 years of his life, he devoted himself entirely to the cleft surgery, which was his passion and his life's mission. He established and headed the Charles Pinto Center for Cleft Lip and Palate, which was recognized for training surgeons by the British Association of Maxillofacial Surgeons and the Dutch Association of Facial Plastic and Reconstruction Surgery. He has operated on over 22,000 cleft cases. His work has been largely funded by the Dutch organizations like Simawi, the Rotary Club of Dokkum, and the Rotary International for the initial 20 years, and also by the Smile Train from November 2000, which enabled him to reach out to the poor. Dr. H.S. Adenwala, who devoted all his life to surgery, was a lovable person, a lover of nature, and above all, a good human being. Dr. HSA also was an excellent teacher who enlivened his lectures with poetry, philosophy, and quotations from the history of medical science. Above all, he was a gentle and kind-hearted surgeon who kept his patients' interests above everything else, especially the poor and the downtrodden. The success of a person is measured by the contribution made to the civilization by serving humanity. Dr. H.S. Adenwala was a very successful man who was truly an icon to be remembered and a philanthropist par excellence. He was awarded the Shushruta Oration in 1999 by the Association of Plastic Surgeons of India. He delivered a guest lecture at the International Cleft Lip and Palate Foundation in Zurich 2000, where he was awarded a citation in recognition of the outstanding contributions in supporting patients with cleft lip and palate and for advancing the medical skills in developing countries. He was awarded the Millard Oration, a lifelong journey to the mastery of the cleft craft at Brunei, 27th November 2005. Joseph McCarthy Award in Excellence in Medicine and Humanitarian Services in November 2006 in New York, and the Dr. K.S. Shekhar Endowment by the Association of Plastic Surgeons of India for Plastic Surgeon of the Year Award in 2015, and many others. On 27th May 2020, Dr. H.S. Edenwala breathed his last.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Now we request Reverend Father Francis Pallikunath, Director of Jubilee Mission Medical College, to adorn the Ponada on Dr. P.V. Narayanan. Next, for the presentation of life story of Dr. H.S. Edenwala, we invite Dr. Suresh, Professor and ex-HOD of the Department of General Surgery, Jubilee Mission Medical College, and Dr. Vikraman, Professor of the Department of General Surgery of Jubilee Mission Medical College, onto the dais.
Thank you, sir.
Cordless mic. Dr. H.S. Edenwala Memorial Oration 2021. Department of General Surgery, Jubilee Mission Medical College and Research Institute, Thrissur, Kerala, congratulates Professor Dr. P.V. Narayanan, Thrissur, on being awarded with the prestigious Dr. H.S. Edenwala Memorial Oration 2021 and delivering the lecture Oration Legacy of Dr. Hirji Sorab Edenwala. The organizing committee of the annual CME have great pleasure and feel honored in bestowing this award to Professor Dr. P.V. Narayanan, MS FRCS, Head of Department, Charlie Pinto Center for Cleft Lip and Palate and Craniofacial Anomalies, Jubilee Vision Medical College and Research Institute, Thrissur, Kerala. On this day, 14th November 2021, at Mother Teresa Hall, Jubilee Mission Medical College and Research Institute, Thrissur, Kerala. This citation is awarded for his dedicated service in the field of cleft surgery and in recognition of his individual achievements and contribution to medical sciences and humanity. I now request Professor Alex Joseph, Chief of Medical Services, to come over and hand over this citation and award to Dr. Narayan. Move on to the operation.
Next, we invite Dr. P.V. Narayanan, HOD, Charles Pinto Center for Cleft Lip and Craniofacial Surgery, to say a few words.
Good afternoon, everybody. Father Pallikunath, Father Reni Fans, dignitaries present here and watching from all over. At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Ashok Woman and the organizing team for having entrusted this responsibility of imparting the legacy of Dr. Hirji Sorab Edenwala on me. Thank you very much. I wish to share some thoughts on my mentor, Dr. H.S. Edenwala. He was more than a fatherly figure to me. I joined him 23 years ago when I was still wet behind my ears. He literally held my scalpel hand and guided me to cut along the lines that he had very meticulously marked, and made a surgeon out of me. Only when he was confident that I could be trusted not to harm the patients through my surgery did he let me operate on my own. I thank God for having placed me here under his guidance to enable me to become a better surgeon, and more importantly, a better human being. Indeed, he was a colossus. In 1959, he descended on this small town of Thrissur and started his career as a general surgeon at the Jubilee Mission Hospital. From a very comfortable home at Mumbai, then Bombay, he settled in this town, which had hardly any amenities at that time, and embarked on this challenging task, being the only doctor, and along with his wife, who he trained to be his anesthetist, and 4 nuns, and an old open operating theater, and 20 empty beds. To start with, he was a general physician, general surgeon, orthopedic surgeon, obstetrician, gynecologist, pediatrician, all rolled into one. In addition, he also tackled conditions like mitral stenosis with closed mitral commissurotomies, repaired meningoseals, performed ventriculoperitoneal shunts for children with hydrocephalus, resected tubercular lungs, managed TB spine patients with decompression. Then there were the tonsillectomies, the mastoidectomies, cesarean section, hysterectomy, tracheoesophageal fistulas, treatment of Hirschsprung's disease in children, among others. The list is endless. Thereafter, he set about building a team and recruited other able doctors into the fold. With that, he could concentrate on general and reconstructive surgery. Later still, he focused solely on his main passion, the reconstruction of cleft lip and palate children. Through his efforts, the hospital also got transformed in the process. Let us see some illustrative examples of the surgical prowess of this maestro. Raman was one of his early patients. He spotted him while driving through Alattur and enticed him to come to the Jubilee Mission Hospital for the treatment of his cancrum oris, which was quite common then. He closed his oronasal fistula and treated his facial defect with rotational flaps with just the available infrastructure in those days. This was another of his early patients, Sheila, with a grotesque facial deformity following cankermoris. She had lost 3/4 of her upper lip, anterior half of her hard palate, parts of her cheek, columella, and left ala of the nose. Little wonder that she went around covering her face with a towel. Dr. Edenwala used a tube pedicle flap from her left arm for the palate, cheek flaps for the nose, used an extended funnel-shaped Abbey flap to reconstruct the philtrum and columella, and a buccal mucosal graft for the vermilion of the upper lip. She first came to him when she was around 6 years of age, and she continued to visit him for many years thereafter. This is one of the first cleft lip repairs done by Sir. Another more early cleft lip repairs, one of the first Millard repairs done by him, and this was a bilateral cleft lip. This was a patient who had been assaulted by her husband, resulting in the loss of the tip of her nose, columella, and part of the upper lip. He used a median forehead flap for the reconstruction. This was a patient with a facial nerve palsy. He treated this with a fascia lata masseter sling procedure. Correction of ptosis. This large hairy nevus on the forehead was excised and covered with a thick split thickness skin graft. Another nevus, this time in a tricky position on the upper lip and repaired by serial excisions. Reduction of a filarial limb, correction of a saddle nose deformity, reduction rhinoplasty, TM joint ankylosis with a silastic implant done in the year 1960. A very rare duplication of the nose, which he called a double-decker nose, and reconstructed using local tissues. Another very rare deformity, lateral proboscis with hemiabsence of the nose, a cleft lip, and a cleft palate. He corrected the nasal deformity using the Barsky's procedure. A point of note is that he was seeing and treating this patient, such a patient for such a deformity for the very first time. The patient came from Manipur. However, earlier on, when he had come across a description of the Barsky procedure during his voracious reading, he had saved a copy for future use. And sure enough, it came in handy at this time. This child will, of course, need further correction after completion of growth. Transthoracic repair done for a tracheoesophageal fistula with esophageal atresia. Correction of genu varum due to rickets by osteoclasis of the tibia. Correction of genu valgum from rickets treated by supracondylar femoral osteotomy. Talipes equinovarus treated by medial release and a tendoachilles lengthening. In 1968, he performed a partial diaphysectomy of the left clavicle for osteomyelitis. This rendered the patient pain-free with a good range of movement. He then went on to use this as a method of treating clavicular fracture for early rehabilitation, and this worked with the patient remaining pain-free from day one after surgery. He published this in the Indian Journal of Surgery, and this was then used by Israeli surgeons during their wars and by the British surgeons to get their riders back into competition within a week after surgery. It was also quoted in an article in the British Journal of Bone and Joint Surgery. Now let us see some of his original contributions in cleft surgery. A vermilion notch is not an uncommon complication after unilateral cleft lip repair. He analyzed the possible causes of these notches. These were inadequate rotation, turning in of the mucosa and skin around the vermilion, inadequate muscle buildup in the vermilion, contracture of the straight line scar under the vermilion. Having found the possible causes, he then went on to prevent each one of these. Thus, he made an adequate rotation and an ample back cut, adequately undermined the skin and mucosa, left behind a good muscle bulk on the vermilion at the time of pairing on both sides, and built up the muscle with at least 3 non-absorbable sutures, and used a Z-plasty on the mucosa to prevent a scar contracture. While all these maneuvers had been done individually by others, he was the first to combine all these into a protocol that he followed in every patient, thereby avoiding vermilion notches altogether. In complete unilateral cleft lips, the nasal septum is always deviated to the non-cleft side. In the 1970s, he started performing an aggressive septal repositioning involving the separation of the mucoperichondrium from both sides and from other attachments, shortening of the septum, scoring on the non-cleft side to avoid the bowstringing effect, and fixing the straightened septum. He was able to show that it was quite safe to correct the cartilaginous septum in the primary cleft lip repair without causing any harm to the growth of the nose in the long run. This has been the experience of other centers as well, but he resorted to the most aggressive septal repositioning and was rewarded with good and stable long-time results with no septal deviation. The results of his cleft lips were a treat to watch, but his passion was the cleft palate. He enticed and coaxed the most widest cleft palates into closure without any tension and got excellent speech results. And in the palate, he was especially concerned about the uvula. The uvula is a slender structure and quite difficult to repair in many cleft palates. He believed that the uvula had an important functional role and devised an original technique for its repair. The uvula was paired. The last nasal layer stitch was a mattress. An apical mattress was placed and the uvula turned over, giving access to the pharyngeal aspect of the uvula, which was then sutured. Then the oral aspect of the uvula was sutured. With this meticulous technique, he produced the most natural looking uvulas. I shall now enlist some attributes of his that have helped in shaping my life and personality. I sincerely believe that attention to these will enrich the lives of all those who follow these principles. And I'm most certain that I will always have left out many more attributes of his in my talk. That is the enormity of the task at hand. He taught us how important it is to be compassionate by setting an example himself. In the days before Smile Train, when funds were not easy to come by, he would spend much time and effort to determine if the patient could actually pay for the surgery out of his savings or would need to borrow, paying huge interest rates. He would even inquire as to how many mouths he had to feed to determine the patient's paying capacity. And then, if there was the slightest doubt, he would offer them money from his poor box and offer the surgery free of charge under one of the funds. He was a man of principles, and with strong convictions, he would boldly go ahead in his chosen path, unmindful of any hurdles. The self-conviction was enough to break all barriers to achieve the goals he set for himself. He was a determined fighter and never shied away from a battle to uphold his principles, irrespective of the denomination of the opponent. And this often brought him up against the authorities of the day. He never liked to procrastinate. It may sound somewhat alien to the basic plastic surgery principle laid down by Sir Harold Gillies that read, "Never do today what can honorably be put off for the morrow." One could say that he modified this principle to never put off for the morrow anything that can safely be done today. He never stopped learning. Even at the peak of his surgical career, he would invite younger surgeons to operate and learn from them. He would never embark on any surgical venture without having seen a procedure done by an expert and reading the manuscript describing the surgery and watching a recorded video of the procedure over and over. In that manner, he avoided a learning curve. Ultimately, of course, he would execute it even better than the original version. He was passionate about the history of medicine and believed that one should never forget history. He would narrate story after story about the historical aspects of surgeons and their techniques. He had the greatest respect and reverence for his teachers. He made every effort to propagate their work and would go the extra mile to ensure that his gurus got the credit that they deserved. He even kept their framed photographs in his clinic and at home. Teaching was as much his passion as the surgery itself. He would be thrilled when he had attentive trainees and would impart every single fact that he had himself learned to every receptive student. He never discriminated between his trainees in teaching them. He believed that it was the prime responsibility of every teacher to not only see that his students do better work than he ever did, but also to inculcate in them the undeniable virtues of intellectual honesty, humility, and a reverence for life and a spirit of introspection. He was loyal to his friends, family, and institute and would go to any extent to defend them at all times. He was a Kalpaka Vriksha. People of all sorts came to him when in need, and he would never fail to help every one of them. Many of his old patients would walk into the clinic with vague complaints. He would diagnose that the real problem was the need for financial support and help them. No one was turned away. When a friend or colleague approached him with a problem he or his family was facing, he would instantly absorb the problem as his own and do whatever was needed to overcome the problem. Within minutes, he would call the top experts of the country to obtain a solution. He always accepted what he did not know. For example, he would always say that the cleft palate speech problem has not been fully solved and understood. He was actually rebuked by his trainees for such an answer. It was, however, not all work and no play for him. In his heydays, he was a good cricketer and he played tennis and golf. Almost till the very end, he enjoyed his long walks and he never missed them come rain or sunshine. He enjoyed his food and drink and he had a great sense of humor. Reading was a passion with him. He would read widely on various topics, and with cleft surgery, he would sometimes read the same book over and over again and derive new insights that had been lost to him previously. He would then use such information to improve his surgical technique. He took great care in selecting a good team. Once selected, they became his colleagues and they were never looked down upon. He would give equal importance to everyone's thoughts. He did not believe that knowledge flowed only one way from the elder surgeon to the elder person to the younger person. He encouraged his junior colleagues to take up newer avenues, but would monitor their work very closely. He was one of the greatest orators of all time. When he was to make a presentation at a conference or any forum, he followed the same meticulous attitude that he did with his surgical technique. He called himself a neurotic. He would begin preparation of the manuscript as soon as he had decided on the topic, and then he would complete the write-up overnight. Then would begin a process of reading it over and over again, and he would practice the presentation with slides, with one of us changing the slides for him at the designated time. We would have a copy of his speech and mark the slide changes just as he would on his copy. Ultimately, when the presentation was done, slides would be changed in a natural flow without him having to call out for the next slide. And he would know each and every word that he was to utter, as he would have practiced it several times. Above all was his missionary ethos. Never approach the portals of a hospital with the mind of a money changer was one of his favorite guiding principles. Ethical to a fault, he did not indulge in private practice, nor did he allow any private agency to influence his choice of treatment. He never sought power, positions, or awards. It was another matter that these still continued to come to him till the very end. One of the first was a mention in the magnum opus, Cleft Craft by Ralph Millard. And towards the end, he was made a distinguished fellow of the Association of Maxillofacial Surgeons of India in 2019 November. When the Indian Society for Cleft Lip, Palate and Craniofacial Anomalies was formed in the year 2002, the executive committee unanimously decided to nominate him as the first president. However, when he was approached, he flatly refused. At the general body meeting that followed, all of us tried very hard to convince him to accept. I still vividly remember his agonized face at the time. It was with great reluctance that he finally accepted. Of course, having accepted, he spared no efforts in coordinating with the organizing team in his usual meticulous manner a year ahead of the conference. Needless to say, the conference was a great success. The highlight was his presidential address, which will remain in our minds forever. Not only did he not seek awards, but he also nipped in the bud any attempts by any of us to seek such deserving honors for him. Thus, an influential father of one of his patients discussed with us about applying for a B.C. Roy Award for him and requested for some details. We collected these details surreptitiously, but somewhere along the line, he got wind of our effort and tore the documents and consigned them to the bin right in front of our eyes. And he extracted a promise from us never to make any such attempt in the future. In the year 2006, he was awarded a very coveted honor, the Joseph G. McCarthy Award for Excellence in Medicine and Humanitarian Services, which included a cash award equivalent to about 11 lakhs of rupees that he was free to use as he desired. What he did with the money was characteristic and gives one the measure of the man he was. He deposited the entire amount in the hospital account and used it totally for the welfare of poor and needy patients and others who approached him with pleas for financial support, and used no part of it for his own needs. I can imagine that all of us will come across many great persons and also some highly skilled surgeons, some passionate teachers, perhaps a few compassionate and humble human beings, maybe a handful of bold leaders with impeccable integrity. But all this and more in a single individual, I for one am sure that I will never again encounter another such individual in my lifetime. And I thank God for having given me the opportunity to have been closely associated with him. Once again, my sincere thanks to Dr. Ashok and the organizing team for having entrusted this honor on me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your beautiful presentation.